you for tuning in to Conversations with Dee. This is
Thank
Deanna.
you for having me.
Thank you for coming. And so, everybody that's watching, I have the legendary R&B D Train, James
How
D
you
Train.
doing?
How you
What's
doing?
up, people? How you doing, Dee?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for
Happy
asking.
Friday to you, darling.
Happy Friday. Now that the volume is working. So yeah. So thank you so much again for coming.
Thank
And
you for having me. Yeah.
so it was important for me to have individuals who are pillars in the R&B classical arena, people who
Mhm.
obviously have a great story to tell. And so I asked you because like I love your music and I've been listening to your music ever since like I want to say 2000 something. Like when I was in college, I actually came
Wow.
across You Are the One for Me when I was on not Spotify, but the other one.
iTunes?
No, not iTunes.
Oh,
iTunes.
okay.
So Pandora.
You're talking to an old man. Next thing y'all be talking about MySpace. I'll be like, wait a minute,
It's
hold
okay.
on.
No, so Pandora. And so the song
Okay,
came,
no, okay.
one of my coworkers was like, how you know about that? I said, I know a lot about old school music. And so I was, okay. Yeah. So I want to know, how did you start your journey? How did that start? What did that look like for you?
Well, my journey began, gosh, 6 years old. I started singing in the church, Washington Temple Church of God in Christ in Brooklyn, New York, under the pastoring of Bishop F.D. Washington. Ronnie Dyson, who had the record, If You Let Me Make Love to You, Then Why Can't I Touch You? He was our choir director. Al Sharpton was our junior church minister. He was like 19 something years old. He would preach on Friday nights to the youth. Reverend Timothy Wright was our musical director.
Oh,
And so I started singing at 6 years old
okay.
under Henry and Irene Constant, who was the first musical directors of Washington Temple. And they went on to be with Reverend Heights Church. And then Timothy Wright came in, and I started singing with him. And I worked with him till I did my first professional recording, 15 years old. I sang with the Timothy Wright Concert Choir on a song called The Victories and the Praise, which came out, I want to say 1976,
Mhm.
but long time ago. And um, and then, years later, I went on, when I turned 19, after I stopped playing football for Erasmus and graduated from Erasmus High School, my buddy Will Downing invited me to do a studio session for him. Um, and I went in and worked with him, and Hubert Eves III was his producer. Hubert had played with him too, and so many other great artists, Donny Hathaway, Roberta Flack. And he invited me over to his house to write a song. And I went to the house. He said, "Hey man, I love the way you sing. Um, Listen, can you do you hear anything on this?" I said, "Well, play it." So he, I'll stand up on the cloud and shout out loud. I don't have the rest of it. I was like,
You're the
okay,
one for me.
yeah. And 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 then I got a paper and pad, and I started writing. With this true love I found, takes my feet up off the ground to fly away. And we wrote "You're the One for Me," and then our chemistry was strong as soon as we started writing together. 5 albums later, here we are. And we've had several top 10 hits, several top 5 hits on Billboard charts. And 35, almost 40 years later, they're still relevant, which is wonderful because a lot of people don't last that long. Not in this business. Sometimes you're a one-hit wonder and you're gone. But thank God they still play my records on radios and in clubs around the world. So I'm grateful because I can still go work.
I know that's right. Like you do a lot of touring and a lot of going over to to Europe and whatnot, and that's awesome. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people know you over there. Why do
Oh,
you
I
think
got a lot of
that?
friends.
Why do you think that is? Like in terms of mainstream artists, in terms of people overseas, they know the artistry more and they kind of respect it a little bit more than over here.
Well, America is the land of what have you done for me lately? And we know from being in the music industry for so many years that you could be the flavor of the month, and then somebody else is the flavor of the month. And it's a recyclable thing. Everybody gets a turn at the top. Some people stay there for a long time. Some people stay there for 15 minutes. Some people stay there for 5. Some people stay there for 1 minute and they're gone. Thank God, 35 years, I'm still in the game. My name is still relevant. And I've been blessed to work in so many different factions of the business. So I'm pretty well rounded in the business, because when 1988 came around and it was my 4th time doing Soul Train and my 4th time doing Top of the Pops in London, um, it was an interesting journey, because the first time we did Top of the Pops was Sting and the Police when they had Synchronicity album out. I got to meet Elton John in the green room, and I was like, that's Elton John. But it was the beginning of the 80s, and they weren't playing Elton John a lot on the radio because he was a 70s artist. This is before I'm Still Standing, and you know, songs he wrote about Marilyn Monroe came out, and then he blew back up to the top of the charts. So he was relevant in the 70s, then he tapered off. Then he became relevant again in the 80s and still here. So, you know, everybody gets a second chance at the brass ring. You know, it's just like basketball teams. The Lakers may be champions for 3 years in a row, and then they go away, and it's the Miami Heat's turn. And then the Lakers come back, and they may win it 2 more years in a row. You know what I mean? That's what the music industry is. You can go away for 5 years. But like what's happening now, we've gone into, and I know I've gone all the way around to answer your question, but we've become like a manufacturing factory of The Voice, American Idol, unproven talent that gets a chance on television, and I'm happy for them. I'm not down that at all. But to say that they're the best that we have to offer, no. I see kids on street corners in Santa Monica on the 3rd Street Promenade who can blow most of them away. Most of the music that you hear on the radio, it's recyclable and it's unmemorable these days. And artists may hate me for saying it. And, you know, I had my own radio show at one point on Sirius Satellite Radio. And I've had everybody come on my show from Jet Li to Lionel Richie. And Lionel Richie once said to me, I said, Lionel, what do you miss about, you know, the music of when we were making music back in the 80s? He said, that's simple, D-Train, the melody. And, you know, what I learned from Luther Vandross and working in the studio with him and many times was it's the silence between the notes that makes the song. So many times young people today, when they sing a song, they got to hit every note. And it sounds like a butterfly going all the way around the room. I want love. And you're sitting there going, okay. But then it's like you did that before the first chorus. Now what are you going to do in the second chorus? What are you going to do in the second verse? What do you got to offer me? Can you take it any higher? Because you've given me your whole repertoire in the first 8 bars. So there's really not a lot other to give me in the second verse other than ooh. You know, years ago as songwriters, we learned to build a song. You learned how to go from the verse, the introduction to the verse to the pre-chorus to the chorus, you know, to the bridge and everything else. They don't even have bridges no more. I don't think these kids know what bridges are. I hate to say it because music, everything is sampled. They don't even know music anymore because they don't have to learn how to play a keyboard. They don't have to learn how to play a guitar. They don't have to learn how to play a trumpet. They just hit a button and the button plays it for them. And they win a Grammy Award and they feel like they're a genius. And a lot of people are going to hate me for this, but it's the truth and it's real. And we as real musicians who respect each other, we talk about this behind closed doors, but it's the real truth. Kids aren't going to music school no more trying to learn how to play a piano. To them, it takes up too much time and too much effort to learn how to train your hands and your fingers. So when they get on stage, you can't press those buttons. And what I learned in the 80s, when you do shows and all the electricity goes out, then you learn who the real musicians are, because the dude that's on the electric guitar will pick up the acoustic and start playing it. The dude that's on the synthesizer will slip on over to the piano, and you can continue the show. I can keep on singing a cappella. All right. So we can finish what we started. But in today's society, I would love to see people like a Drake do what he does without the people behind it, because Drake can't sing. So if he don't have a vocoder on his voice, we're going to find out what Drake really sounds like. And it ain't going to sound like, sound like a buzzsaw to me, you know, not disrespecting the brother. I'm happy for his success. But I'm just saying, in terms of talent, he's a billionaire based off of what? You know, I don't even know what you call vocoders or whatever. You know, so there's, amongst real musicians, there's not a whole lot of respect for that. It's a new millennial game. 22-year-olds don't know their history. That's the problem. As millennials and people from the age of 15 to 30, they don't know their history. They know Drake, they know Beyonce, they know Jay-Z, but they don't know Aretha Franklin. They don't know James Brown. They don't know Gladys Knight. And these are the people that paved the way for us, you know, on so many different sides. They don't know Elton John. They don't know Paul McCartney. When Kanye West came out with that song with Rihanna and Paul McCartney, there's just one more second till Sunday. Most of the millennials were saying, wow, that old white man is lucky to be on there with Kanye. You're talking to the Beatles. Okay, you really don't know. So my thing is, unless we who do know teach them so they can be better, because you never know where you're going unless you know where you come from.
Amen.
And if you don't know your history, you can't create your destiny, because it's created on things that you know nothing about other than air.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no D Train without James Brown. There's no D Train without Luther Vandross, or the 5 Stair Steps, the Delphonics, Black Ivory, you know, the Shy Lights, you know, the Stylistics, the Spinners, Peebo Bryson, Luther Vandross. There's no D Train without these people. Parliament Funkadelic. I'm not here without the Barcades. So if they weren't there and I didn't get to learn from them, I wouldn't know how to do what I'm doing, you know. And thank God that I was able to transfer that same energy when I started doing jingles and doing television commercials, and learn from a lot of pop musicians who were brilliant musicians who didn't make it in the record industry, that started writing 2-minute jingles. Mm-hmm. And that was where I learned how to produce. These guys had to come up with scores, epic scores in 2 minutes, and you had to sing them. And that's where you learn to become a quick read, because you got to learn to go, you know, the touch, the feel, the fabric of our lives, the touch, the feel of cotton, the fabric of our lives. You like milk and it shows, it does the body good. You like, I mean, you had to learn it. You had 1 minute. The customer's sitting right there. You want to get paid? Learn it, sing it, and do it. So you learn these things. And so I went from the record industry into the jingle business. And then from the jingle business, I got a call from a buddy of mine, BJ Stone, who was head of black programming up at this radio station back in 2000. He called me up and said, D-Train. He said, there's this new radio station coming out, man, and I would love for you to have a show on it. You're interested? Mm-hmm. He said, I tried to get Will, but Will was busy. Will was unknown. Will Downing, ladies and gentlemen. But what happened was, I went in, he trained me for 3 months, and it was Sirius satellite radio. And I wound up having one of the top radio shows there for 8 years. And it was an experience, it was a learning experience, because you learn how to shut up and listen instead of talking. Because conversationally, we all talk over each other. Yeah, child, you know what to do. You know you're right. That's right. You know. we just talk conversationally, especially as musicians. We don't let each other finish the sentence, you know. And when you're in radio, you have to shut up because they have to edit those conversations. So you can't talk over them because they may want to play back your interview at Christmas or at Mother's Day, or So you learn those things, and then from there, I've come back full circle, um, back into the record business. I recorded 63 songs. I wrote 63, so I narrowed it down to 16, and I'm going to release that next year.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm really excited about it. It's going to be D Train, the other side of the tracks, because as a kid, I grew up with the best of black music. My dad took me to the Apollo Theater every Friday night to see the Five Stair Steps and QB and Black Ivory and Delphonics. And then when my mother had us bust out into the white neighborhoods, and she said, "Babe, Brooklyn," and that was during the race wars, where you had to be out of the neighborhood by 3 o'clock because most of the Italian people in the neighborhood didn't want you there at 4 o'clock when their daddies came home. So there you heard Carly Simon and James Taylor.
Oh my
You
God.
know, and you got to learn the music of Elton John at Crocodile Rock. And, that's what they were playing out in those neighborhoods and on the school bus. So I grew up listening to both of those worlds. And then musically, when I got to high school, Will Downing, and I will give him credit for this because he's responsible for D Train coming together, introducing me to Hubert. But not only that, when we were in high school, he got me into doing plays and into the choral club, you know, and he introduced me to the music of Earth, Wind, and Fire and George Duke and Stanley Clarke because I wasn't into jazz. And he was like, "Yo, D, you need to check this out." I was like, "Okay." And I was spending the night at his house because we were doing a play, the South Pacific. And I was a junior, he was a sophomore. And he introduced me to the music of Earth, Wind, and Fire. They had Gratitude out at the time, And George Duke and Stanley Clarke had the album Reach Higher. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. And he made me fans of both of them. And many years later, 2012, 2013, 2014, I was called upon by my good friend Rob Mathis to work at the Kennedy Center Honors, to sing backgrounds behind everybody on there with Cindy Mizell, Tawatha A.G., Curtis King. And we worked with everybody for those 3 years for President Barack Obama, which was a great honor. And working with these people, hanging out with Garth Brooks backstage, talking to him about estrogen, because he said, "I got 3 daughters and a wife. Too much estrogen in my house, D-Train." I said, "I understand, bro. I understand. Give me more." I'm inquisitive because I want to learn. They say 50 feet from stardom. I've been a star. I've been the guy that's on top. I've been the guy that's standing where you stood. May not have stood there as high on that side of the mountain or got up to the level where you got to, but I stood there. And I'm still standing there in certain arenas. If you go around Europe, I can still gather 100,000 people or 50,000 people at a concert. It's just that in America, we don't know D-Train because in America, most people think that my last record was in 1982. And when we came out with Something's on Your Mind in 1985, which went top 5, they didn't think it was D-Train because the club world was fading out and R&B was fading in with R. Kelly. So when Something's on Your Mind came out and went top 5, they was like, "Who's that?" When Oh How I Love You Girl, which is NFL Hall of Famer Harry Carson's favorite song. That's the song he got married to his wife to. And he told me, he said, "D-Train, I love that song. I got married to my wife. Oh, how I love." I said, "Harry, play football. Just play football. I got the memories, Harry. Just don't sing to me my same song, please." But I loved it. It was an honor to me to work, to hear him say that and then do movies. I got to work on the movies Keeping the Faith with Ben Stiller and Ed Norton. As a principal extra in there. We would choir, myself, Fonzie Thornton, so many others, great singers from New York that were session singers, which you can see in the movie. I got to work on The Perfect Stranger with Halle Berry and Bruce Willis, where I was the head of a band in there. I wanted to be in silhouette, but they just cut me. I had everybody going to the movies talking about, DJ, you gonna be in the movie? I was like, yeah, I spent 3 days on Park Avenue filming at Cipriani. You know, and I'm on camera. And I went to the movie to the premiere, and it was like, silhouette. I was like, who's that black silhouette in the corner? But it's cool. I think, both songs made the movie. And you hear both songs in the movie in the scene at Cipriani's, which was the Victoria's Secret scene, where Bruce Willis is toasting his clients. And so, it was fun doing that with Halle Berry. And she was gracious enough on set, called me over. She was like, D-Train, I have all your albums. I'm sitting there going, oh, all your movies. Really? When she came up to me, she ran up to me and she was getting ready to hug me. And I was like, oh, how you doing, Hallie? I stuck my hand out because I was afraid. I was afraid to touch her. I was like, yeah. But it was cool. And then at the end, I hugged her. But I was like, when I first saw her, it's like, you don't want to touch a diamond. You're like, ugh. But it was fun. It was fun. And I've had a blessed and brilliant career. It's been a great ride. And I'm ready for the second half of it. I just want to do it right. My mission now is to show the world that I'm more than just a black artist, just a dance music artist. I've explored so many different genres of music, coming up in gospel, singing with so many pop albums. People don't even know I'm on Bat Out of Hell too.
Oh my God. Wow.
Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell. Picture me on Meatloaf's album. Okay. Bette Midler.
Oh wow.
Elton John's Aida. I'm singing on all the backgrounds on all of these. Hercules, Zero to Hero. And people didn't know, me and Bobby Floyd, the late Bobby Floyd, are the voices of Pokemon, the television series. So,
I love Pokemon.
Yeah, every day when you watch it was me and Bobby doing the Poke Rap. At least 150 or more to see, to be your Pokemon master is my destiny. Yeah, that was me.
Oh my God.
And Bobby would come in to do his thing, and it was fun because it made me cool with the little kids. The little kids said, I like Uncle D-Train, he's on Pokemon. And I never watched the cartoon. But anyway, it was cool. Yeah. And then, to have your music sampled and done by people like Biggie Smalls on Life After Death, and Yo-Yo featuring Gerald Levert on Is It All Good, and two Japanese groups, Zoo and Exile, was wonderful for me because it kept my name relevant over the years. A lot of people think the last record that I actually recorded was in 1982. But in Europe, I've been recording with Bob Sinclair, and we had an album out there over there called Champs-Élysées. On his Champs-Élysées album, I did a song called Darling and Got to Be Free, which I wrote for the album. And wrote with so many different French artists. And it's been fun, So I keep my name out there. And because, you can go to London right now and ask a 15-year-old, who is D-Train? And they will go, D-Train was born 1962, January 21st, so-and-so, Brooklyn, New York. His eye was closed when he was born. They had to wipe him twice before they put him into that. I mean, they will do that and literally tell you that. Now, you ask that same 15-year-old in America, and they'd be like, what? I caught the D-Train. Wait a minute, isn't it? That's the line that runs by the J. It goes through Newkirk. Is that the one that goes through Flatbush? That's because what happens is, in America, the only thing they know about is the last 15 minutes. They don't know about the last 15 years or 35 years. And that's it, because they don't know their history. And so they can't create their destiny. They can sample it because you did it for them. They don't have to try and, do You're the One for Me, because they can't play it. They can't play like Hubert Eves. They can sample Hubert Eves, but they will never get on that stage and play with him because they don't know how to play.
Yes.
You got to put in the effort, and you got to put in the time for musicians to really respect you, you know. And we as musicians, we don't down the people,
Mm-hmm.
but it's time somebody told the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's things that we say every day. You listen to Gladys Knight sing on The Masked Singer and let her take that mask off and find me 5 young ladies that can blow away Gladys Knight or Patti LaBelle today. You will know.
Mm,
And it ain't going to be Taylor Swift. It
no.
won't be Adele. They even though they're gifted and they can sing, they can't sing like Gladys and Patti. And they doggone sure enough won't touch Aretha. Mm-mm.
Just
Aretha
the
got
one I
rest
could
of
think
the
of.
was in class by herself. Because what happens is artists made you feel. See, there was a difference between today's artists. Artists today, you can hear, you can listen to, but there's a difference between hearing and listening. I can hear your voice. Am I listening to you? Maybe, maybe not. But when I listen to you, that means I'm paying attention. And that means you got my attention. And very few artists of today can get my attention. You might catch my ear because I'm flipping through the radio station, but you may not get my attention.
Mm-hmm.
There's a street kid out there on Third Avenue Promenade that can get my attention.
Mm-hmm.
And he might be 12 years old with a guitar that can play like Stevie Ray Vaughan. I'm gonna stand there for a half an hour and listen to him because most of the talent that we have in America gets squandered, and most of the gifted songwriters like a Paula Cole, you know what I mean, or a Rumer, whose names you've never heard, but if you investigate Rumer, who sounds exactly like Karen Carpenter, or you investigate um, Paula Cole, who's a brilliant songwriter.
I know who she is.
Yeah, you won't, you just, they get lost in the wayfare, you know?
She did the
And
theme song for Dawson's Creek. I don't want to wait for my
right,
time to
right,
get. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And, what happens is artists can write so many songs and make so many albums. But when radio won't play you, it's sort of like, it feels like, because there's only 10 slots for terrestrial radio as we know it. The WBLSs, the Z100s, and radio that we know in New York
Mm-hmm.
and around the country. There's 10 slots. So where does D-Train fit into a 10-slot New World Order? Or Will Downing, for that matter, who's a great artist and brilliant, and all of his albums are great.
Awesome.
But where do you hear Will Downing? Where do you hear D-Train? Except on a Friday night when they're doing house music. What happens is we're into the flavor of the month. And the flavor of the month, unfortunately, doesn't last very long because from 1990 on, I can question most people. There's a few artists that may help you remember, but from 1995 on, other than pop music, and I was in Europe during most of the 90s, so I can't totally speak on American music. I don't remember most of them. And even when I hear it today, I'm like, who's that? When did they come out? Because what happened was in 1988, when I bowed out of the game, music had changed. New Jack Swing was in. Teddy and Guy had entered the game. Hip hop and R&B merged. And it was funky and it was slamming, but it was one groove all the way through. And Teddy's a bad boy. Do I think that it diminished a little bit? No, because he got so much out of it. He got so much mileage out of it. He got Michael Jackson out of it. Remember the time. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Teddy's a bad boy. What he gave you on the record and what he can give you as a musician is two different things. Because Teddy is like Quincy Jones as a musician. But what radio and airplay allowed him to be was so much less. It's one groove, funky, slamming, give it to you, make you move. That's it. And that's what the people want. What I love about Prince is you didn't dictate his time, you didn't dictate his tone, you didn't dictate his melody. the period he was going to release, whatever he was going to release, how he was going to release, how he was going to look when he released it. And he didn't care whether you liked it or not, whether you played it or not. Other than Purple Rain and maybe a few other hits, because fans have their individual. There's D-Train songs that Europeans that can pick out, and even a few Americans that you've never heard on the radio. Same thing with Prince. She's always in my hair, which is my wife's favorite. She's always in my hair, and I was like, what's the name of that song? And then I listened to it. I was like, oh, that one. What's really funny, and well, not funny, but before his death, I get a phone call from his keyboard player, Morris. And Morris hit me up and he's like, D-Train, we're getting ready to do George Lopez tonight, man. Prince wants your blessing. And I was like, Morris who? This ain't Morris Day, is it? He said, no, man, I'm Morris. And I'm Prince's keyboard player. And he says, we're getting ready to do George Lopez. Prince wants your blessing, man. And I said, okay. All right. Tell him he got my blessing, but I didn't do this alone. So being fair, let's call Hubert Eves. Have him call, you guys call Hubert Eves. Here's Hubert's number and get his blessing also. But they did. And they called up Hubert, and Prince went on George Lopez and did one for me. And I was deeply, to this day, even now, sometimes I get emotional about it, because how many people's music did Prince do live? He did a lot of different people's music because he was listening. Listen to D'Angelo. He listened to different artists that were creative, but you did not dictate the tone or the time to Prince.
I actually have that too. I was on for everybody, so the new people can see it. Like people my age who are not used to it, they got to see it. They got to see it. I'm gonna take
What happened was after he passed, I got another strange call. I think about a month or two after he passed, or maybe 3 months, from the Boston Pop Symphony Orchestra, 2015. They said, D-Train, we're getting ready to go on the road. We're doing Nantucket. We're doing Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard. We want you to go on the road with us. I said, wow, Boston, but you mean at Symphony Hall? They were like, yeah. I said, oh, yes, put the bells on. And what was interesting, that's like the New York Symphony calling. And I flew down to Boston, and they said, I said, what do y'all want me to sing? They said, Purple Rain.
Oh my God.
And we rehearsed. I learned Purple Rain before I got there. I went there, rehearsed. And what was odd was that things started happening at Boston Symphony Hall that had never happened before. They've had people Boston and different groups play there. When I sang Purple Rain, people started running through the balcony like it was a rock concert. Now, if anybody knows anything about symphonies, people clap. Yay. And they sit there. The kids started running through the balcony, trying to reach over the balcony to give me a high five as I'm walking off stage, because they couldn't get to the first floor because it was full. Boston Symphony Hall was sold out. Not because of me, because it's the Boston Pops, of course. But when they heard Purple Rain sing like that, they was like, oh, man. So it's not what you hear. It's what you listen to. And it's not what you see. It's what you feel. And very few artists can make you feel. See, most artists hit you from the outside in. They can make you bob your head. They won't make you cry. They won't bring tears to your eyes. And they won't bring a burden to your soul. They won't make you remember where you were when you heard that record, or if you want to hear it again. Because sometimes some records are one-offs. And it's unfortunate because radio in America, there's not enough radio stations to play the music that we have for musicians. Most of the music in America gets lost. Most of the artists around the world get lost. And some of the most brilliant artists in music are like Picasso paintings that somebody throws into the East River and never seen again. It's unfortunate. So we're left with what radio and everything else dictates to us. Like when I was out, you had to earn the #1 spot on the radio. You had to earn the #1 spot in Billboard. And somewhere in the 90s that changed. How the heck do you debut at #1? Somebody paid somebody. Somebody paid somebody. And so now you debut at #1, and it's the falsehood that, oh, your record is the baddest record out there. I ain't never heard your record. And if it's debuting tonight, this is the first time I heard it in the first place. So how's it #1? It should be number 23. You know what I mean? But it debuts at #1. Why? Because they tell you it's #1. And so when they tell you that, most millennials and young people, oh, it's the #1 record. Let me go buy it.
Yeah.
And because they're paying that money that they used to pay for record stores and different things, because I learned about record stores. I used to say, why are all these albums in the window and my record in miscellaneous under D? And I'm top 5 on the Billboard charts. I don't understand. And it's because the record company would pay to have you in the window. So years ago when I was out, you had to go travel around the country with an envelope, which was called payola. You had to pay the program directors around the country. You know, you had to walk out of your house with $40,000, $50,000 to pay somebody's kids' college tuition, somebody's car payment, and it became illegal somewhere down the line through the 90s. The government ran it. Now the new pimp in the game is radio. What do they call them now? They're not. Oh, they're radio. Not radio programmers. I forgot what they call them.
Editors, engineers.
No, they're not radio engineers. They're the radio guys that get your songs to the radio stations. I forgot the terminology for it, but it's like you call me up and say, hey, D-Train, I got a new record coming out. Okay, so that'll be $10,000. I'll get you on BLS. And it's the same pimp game, but it's just a new name for it.
It's a new name.
And it ain't with the radio
promoters.
Radio promoters. That's what they call themselves. Okay. That's the new pimp in the game, radio promoters. And they're doing the same thing that they did during payola, but it's just they're not affiliated with the radio stations.
True.
They go to the radio stations on your behalf to get your record played, but you're still paying the same $10,000 that you would have to pay the record promoter. I mean, the radio station, the program director. So it's a new pimp, but it's a different game.
That's pretty much why a lot of people in the industry right now, like new artists, I think that's why some people are saying their career is so relevant. And I mean, not to knock anybody, you know, you do what you need to do. It's okay. But I know for me, I respect artists from back in the day because, like you said, if it wasn't for Aretha Franklin, it wasn't for people like Shaka Khan, Prince, all of them, there would not be a Beyonce, a Rihanna, or any of them. They would not.
The funniest thing, not to cut you off, I've worked with Beyonce and Jay-Z. I worked with Beyonce on the Katie Couric cruise when she sang You'll Never Walk Alone. I was standing right behind her in the choir. We had a group of singers from, you know, our collective of jingle singers in New York who got called on to do movies and films, and, you know, and we got to work with the top artists in the industry. I got to work with Jay-Z when he did the David Letterman show with Pharrell, and he called him for real. And my good friend Fonzie Thornton, who dragged me into more sessions. And I love you, Fonzie. Fonzie Thornton and Audrey Wheeler have gotten me into more sessions. Danny Thomas and Daryl Toots have gotten me into more session work than I can ever imagine. I thank you guys.
Audrey is phenomenal. She is phenomenal.
We did the Eve album. You know, when Audrey called me up, D, you want to do Cher? I said, wait a minute, you mean Sonny and Cher? She said, yeah, we're going to do Cher. So we sang on the song The Power. And that's me, Audrey Wheeler, and Ada Dyer singing backgrounds behind her.
With 50 Cent. Oh my God. I seen that post. I did. I liked it. I said, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. So when you work with that level, that high level of entertainment, you learn that music. And so I've taken what I've learned over these past 40 some odd years, And I've applied it to my music. I love new age music because I meditate and pray every morning and do affirmations. I guess the older you get, you become more spiritual.
That level, that high.
You know, because when you're younger, so much of what you do is based on ego.
Yeah.
Not that you have a big one, but it takes a certain amount of ego to get up on stage. It takes a certain amount of ego to go into the studio. It takes a certain amount of ego to stand in front of an audience. And my mother always taught me how to keep my ego in check. She said, it's not about you. It wasn't then, and it isn't now. Because sooner or later, they're going to find somebody to replace you.
That's right.
And there's 4 stages, they say, in an artist's life. The first stage is get me D-Train. Because your record is #1. Get me D-Train.
Yes.
And then while you're out there running around on the road, the second stage in an artist's life is get me someone like D-Train. And then the third stage is get me a younger D-Train.
Wow. That's interesting.
And then the fourth stage, because you've lasted so long, is get me D-Train. And they come back full circle to where they began at 40 years ago. And with a pandemic on our, facing our world, and a president that doesn't want to leave office, political chaos in the White House.
I call him the intern.
Oh yeah, well, it's so much. Yeah, it makes you miss Barack Obama.
It definitely did. Yeah, it was classy.
But you know what? What we learned is that from where we've been the past 4 years, I think it made us closer together as a country. I think when all is said and done, we will be more unified than divided. Because George Floyd's taught us front and center what a lynching looks like. And millennials got to see what a lynching looks like. I got to see it in, 50s, 60s, because I was born in 62. So when they killed Martin Luther King, I remember them blacking out every television station and just showing the balcony of that hotel. That's all you saw. I remember when they killed JFK. I was there. And, you see them black out and show the shot going in and him falling over on his wife's lap over and over and over again for weeks and months at a time. Young people today have not seen that type of violence. Well, they have in the streets if you live in the hood or any type of hood. But to watch a man die on television and no one be prosecuted, and the police officers all go free. They're put on desk duty for a minute, and then they go back to Wendy's, McDonald's, and have lunch. And they just killed your brother or your sister or your niece in Tawana, you look at the people's names. Our list for Black people are so long, it just...
Yeah.
We've dealt with this for 300 plus years, They need to go back and look at Emmett Till's story and see the anger and the anguish that his mother felt when they took a 12-year-old boy from his uncle's house and tortured him all night long and cut off different body parts. Because that was the first thing that most of those white militia groups would do, is cut off your private parts. Now, imagine being a 12-year-old tied up having that happen to you in the middle of the night and then getting beaten all night long till you're disfigured. That was the story of Emmett Till. And his mother was brave enough to show the public what he looked like when they were finished with him before they took him to the funeral home. See, they don't show the pictures of what he looked like before they took him to the funeral home. They show the pictures after, when he looked nice and they had to put a hat on his head in his coffin because his head was smashed in. But if you see the before pictures, then you will understand racism in its fullest in America. And that has always been our Achilles heel, racism. White people don't have to worry about being pulled over, being, now the cops, when they pull you over, their hand is on their gun. It ain't like Can I see your license and registration? It's, can I see your license and registration?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see your license and registration. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I understand they're afraid. So
Mm-hmm.
you wonder how much is protect and serve and how much is it kill or be killed.
Mm-hmm.
And why is it if it's a black man, you pulling over, your hand is on your gun and your holster is already unstrapped when you're walking up to my window. But if it's a white kid in the window, a white woman, or a white young man, weed could be blown out the window. They can
Mm-hmm.
smell the weed and they be like, let me see your license and registration. I mean, unfortunately, look at this. They killed George Floyd with no weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And the kid that killed two people in the church, he's walking down the street with the assault rifle
Yeah.
into the police and they're offering him water. Do you want some water to drink? Is everything okay? Are you all right?
It's a
And
double
people are
standard.
screaming, he just killed two people in the church. Oh, and he went home. This is
Mm-hmm.
what killed me. He went home and turned himself in the next day. But if that was us, they would have killed us before we got to the truck.
Right.
We wouldn't have made it home. Forget going home. And we're tired of it. That's why there's so much unrest in this country. People are like, oh, why don't they just stop it already? Stop the rioting and the loot. Listen, you get to a boiling point, and just like you leave water in a pot, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to do two things. It's going to
Boy.
boil over and evaporate. Some of it's going to go into the air and dissipate. The rest of it's going to go on the floor. And after a while, if you walk out and go to the store and come back, there ain't going to be no water in the pot. You're going to have a burnt pot. And your house might catch on fire.
Mm-hmm.
The house is on fire. That's where we at. After George Floyd, the house is just on fire. And
Yeah.
you don't understand the anger and the anguish because you've been dealing with white privilege for so long. And so the millennials who join with our young black people out there protesting and walking the streets in protest of this racial violence and inequality, I
Mm-hmm.
applaud, because now we're not walking alone. See, in 1960, when Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and them were marching, it was just us. You had a few white people scattered in there, and those people couldn't even go home. They had to hang out with us because they knew if they went home, they'd get killed.
Mm-hmm.
But now you got young white people out here standing up side by side with us. I'm glad I see this in my lifetime, which I thought I'd never see. I wish my mother were alive to see it. I wish my father were alive to see it. I applaud it. We've come a long way, but it's not enough. They have to end systemic racism. They have to call the police into accountability. You know, they get pissed off when somebody walks up to a cop and blows his brains out, but they're not mad when it's the other way around. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying people should go out there and start killing police, because I got friends that are cops. I got family members that are police officers and work in the correctional system. So I'm not saying I think there's bad in every bunch, but I'm saying if you have bad people in your bunch, they need to be prosecuted. Just like, for years, the Catholic Church had pedophile priests. Do they prosecute them? No, they send them off somewhere in Italy, so you never hear from them again in the Vatican. They ain't around children, and you forget that they made little Jimmy do what he did. They hide them. Well, there's no place left to hide. You can't hide George Floyd. We all saw it because everybody got a cell phone now. And every time
Mm-hmm.
you pull out your gun, we're going to pull out our cell phone. That's our weapon now. You can't get away with it. You
Yeah.
ain't going to get away with it. Just like you know who we are when we robbing people on the streets. That's why Edward Snowden had to go to Russia, because he
Mm-hmm.
told us about the hit before it was coming. He said the government is getting ready to put cameras in your homes on every corner in America. They're going to know where you walk, eat, think, and breathe. And they did. And they wanted to kill him just because he said that. And he's white. And he's staying in Russia. What happens? Every time you see somebody get robbed, mugged on the street, whoever did it, they're so stupid, they don't realize they're on camera. It could be in the most remote alleyway in Manhattan, in the elevator, in a building, where you think the cameras don't work because it's in the projects. Guess what? They work because there's a second set of cameras. And those work. They weren't set up by the New York Housing Project. They were set up by the government.
Mm-hmm. There's
And
some
they see
watching us now, like all over the satellites. They're watching us. Like I tell people that all the time. Like they're listening. Big Brother's watching you. 1984, George Orwell, all of that stuff. I mean, that stuff really does happen. I mean, working for the government, um, I've seen it all. So
oh,
I
yeah.
would say that I actually seen the emails that everybody was talking about. Those
Mhm.
emails with somebody. That's all I'm gonna say. And they were not that serious. It was kind of like what we do on a daily basis, like going online,
Right,
applying for jobs or whatnot. Who doesn't do that? People do it all the time. I've done
right.
it. I still do it. Anyway, at the end of the day, stuff happens. And so yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it
You know
doesn't
what?
excuse it though, but it does happen. And I mean, being 35 or whatnot, seeing like the young man, Kawan Charles, he recently, it was done just like Emmett Till. They're now trying to say that he drowned. He did not drown. Please, you
Mm.
beat him. You know exactly
Not in a foot of water.
that
Less than
face.
a foot of water.
Yeah. It was just like Emmett Till.
Yeah,
And
but who's going
yeah,
to take the hit? See, that's the problem. Who's going to take the hit? Who's going to
the
take the hit?
mother
See,
came over
this
and
is-
took the child without permission, and the mother is trying to investigate that now. And also, what about the young man in Georgia where they found his body behind the uh behind in the gym? They found his body. And they're
right,
trying to
right,
cover that up. And his organs were missing. Come on, that's the black market. They've been doing that for years. They've been
yeah.
doing it for years. And they did it again with another young man that was former military. They're doing it. I mean, if you go online and see how much a kidney goes for,
Oh,
a
yeah,
kidney goes for a lot of money.
right,
Black market, if
right.
y'all don't know, guys, millennials, my fellow people, look it up. Black market
Yeah,
is real. Yeah.
true. That's true.
It's really sad. And so like a lot of people they'll say, "Oh, y'all are too woke." No, I mean, I'm aware of certain things, thank God, because my grandmother, she's from Arkansas. So she made sure that I didn't view things through rose-colored glasses and I wasn't somebody who when I got old enough was oblivious to what's going on, that I had
Right.
an understanding that I knew what it was. I knew what racism was, discrimination, prejudice when I was in elementary school. A lot of my classmates who were white, a lot of them, they did not like us. They tolerated us. And a lot of my black friends to this day, because they were so popular, and mind you, in elementary school, they're like, "But you were popular too." I said, "I guess," but I really wasn't worried about that stuff. But anyway, I didn't care who didn't like me. I still don't care. And I just told them like, they don't like us. They tolerate us, and
Well,
that's unfortunate. Not
yeah, it's
all white people
unfortunate.
are bad. There's good and bad and ugly in all groups of people. And
Very
like I
true.
tell my students, the person who kills somebody, that's the person who does it, not the race, not the group. That person does not represent that whole group of people. That person represents what ugliness is and what should not happen. And you don't go and hate the whole group of people. You don't go do that because that's what prejudice is. That's what racism is. That's what discrimination is. And what's really funny is when people, funny not in a ha way, but when people say, "Oh, black people can be racist." No, black people don't have enough power to be racist. First of all, we have been oppressed systematically. We have people who have oppressed us. We can be prejudiced, we can discriminate, but we cannot be racist. We don't have enough power to do that. So when people say, "Oh, reverse racism," okay, no, somebody's probably discriminating against you, and you can file an EEOC, equal opportunity um, commission complaint. Go ahead. But that is not racism. And when they try to gaslight us and they try to, with the microaggressiveness, the fact that in black individuals working in corporate America, we are deemed as aggressive. We are like a woman, we go to work. If we're frowning, oh, we have an attitude problem. That's not true. We have to smile all the time. Like, "Hi, Marjorie, how are you doing?" And we could have lost somebody that same day, but we have to smile. If we don't smile, we're wrong. And they're trying to get rid of us. Just like with men, they are afraid of black men in corporate America.
Oh,
They
very much so.
really are. Oh, they have behavior problems because they come across as aggressive, but yet we have someone else that does the same thing. That's ridiculous. And I've seen it. And we have to stick together. We really do. Because some of us are, what's the word? New Negroes. I heard that term back in college, like, uppity Negroes. It's like, okay, I'm sorry, but y'all got to get it together. And, at the end of the day, I just cannot fathom the ignorance that goes on in this world. Like, I don't understand. Some people, it's just like, wow, did I just see you just do that? Like the Karens, the Karens and Kens that are stopping individuals. So it's like, wow. Like that lady who threw the German Shepherd.
I didn't see that.
She threw the dog, and thank God the dog has a home now. And then the lady who was strangling the dog trying to make in New York, that one.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
Apologizes.
Yeah.
First of all, we need to stop apologizing. Stop apologizing. And we're not even going to talk about Botham James when his family hugged. No. Forgiveness is for yourself. You don't have to tell people that you forgive them. You can tell God or whoever you believe that you forgive them, but I don't owe you that. I don't have to say, I forgive you. No.
Well, historically, Black people have been tolerant. It comes from slavery. Mm-hmm. Be tolerant. Mm-hmm. Be submissive. Mm-hmm. And economic empowerment is always squashed in executive white America because we had a Black Wall Street.
Mm-hmm. Oklahoma.
I hope everybody goes to see that movie, Black Wall Street, because you'll see how two brilliant Black minds owned several banks, but they had to use a white face to do it. And when the white faces found out that these two Black men were brilliant enough to do this, they sent everything but the kitchen sink at them. They sent the IRS, FBI, everybody started knocking on their door. And they shut down every bank because of racism. So what you need to do, what people need to know in the African American, brown, and Latino communities is economic empowerment is the key. Now you can't go back to the ghetto once you leave. You just can't. You can put up different things to help the community. Mm-hmm. But I left the ghetto because I didn't want to live there no more. I got tired of seeing dead people across the street at the bus stop laying there for 2 days. I wasn't going to raise my children inside, and I'm not going to sit up here in front and say, yo, man, I stayed there to be true to the hood. No, I got the hell up out of there as fast as my feet could take me and as fast as my car could drive. Because I can't help you standing next to you. I can help you holding you, pulling you in a different direction because you're in the middle of a fire. And I ain't trying to get burned. What happens is we need to focus on education because people used to say, it's knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. No. The effective use of knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Because it's just like love. Love it, and it's just like money.
The love of money is the root of all evil. When people say
but here's the thing. Money is no good until you use it. Now you can hoard it and hold on to it and worry about who's going to ask me for some. But it ain't no good until you go to the store and spend it. Love it the same way. It ain't no good until you give it away. It's what you give, not what you get, that promotes you to the heavens. It's what you give. And when you leave here, it ain't what you got that people are going to remember. It's what you gave. They don't remember the words you said, but they remember the actions that you took. Mm-hmm. If you're a mean person, but you talk about love all day, if you're a pastor who cheats on his wife, let's not go into the religion, but, or beats his wife. Oh, Lord have mercy. Hallelujah. But I'm just saying.
No, I'm laughing because people.
It's true. It's true. And we've had enough televangelism go. And then, they don't get caught. They get busted. And when they get busted, then, with their pants down, then it's like it's too late to say, oh, my God. But what happens is we elevate people to a place that we hold in our mind. And we need to get back to the point where we look up, not in front of you. Because a man in front of you can't save you. Man in front of you can't elevate you.
You're right about
The man in front of you does not control your destiny or your future.
Amen.
And he can't block your pathway. Because my mother often, there's a saying that says, it's not what's around you, behind you, or in front of you that matters. It's what's inside it. You know, it's not the dog in the fight. It's the fight in the dog.
It's true.
You know, you may beat me down, but if I keep getting up, you're gonna get tired. And when you get tired, it's my turn. And we're gonna see who's gonna take the serious whipping then. I practiced martial arts for 8 years, and I learned from playing football for Erasmus High School. The ones that are the most well conditioned with their bodies, those are the ones that last to the end. It's not the ones who's muscular or bigger or stronger. And it goes back to what the scripture said. The race isn't given to the swift nor the strong, but he who endureth to the end. If you can outlast them, you win. You may get knocked down today and it keep looking like they running down the road way past you. But sooner or later, they're going to hit a brick and they're going to trip. And you might be walking, but you're going to walk up on them and you're going to walk past them and you're going to keep on moving. Yeah. That's the way life is. Because what happens is life happens. Life happens. My brother-in-law, he died 2 weeks ago. God rest his soul, at the voting poll. At the voting poll. Going to vote. Died when they put him at the front of the line. And
oh my God.
Long story short, they take him to the hospital. My sister goes to the hospital. They don't let her in because of COVID and all of this stuff and, you know, the rules and regulations. She went back to the polls and voted after her husband was dead because it was that important to her.
Yeah.
Now, you want to talk discipline. How many people are going to do that? That's why I look up in my big sister. I'm like,
not too many.
That's why I say to myself, we have an Oprah. We had a Madam C.J. Walker. Black women ain't got no excuse not to be empowered. Black and brown Latino women, whatever excuse you gave yourself is irrelevant. And I'm telling all of y'all that because what Madam C.J. Walker did and what Oprah Winfrey has done and is doing, you have your example in front of you. Look at it.
Michelle,
copy it.
Yes.
And become just as equally empowered. You don't have to ask for it. Take it. You know, if there's a brick wall in front of you, knock it down.
That's right.
The problem is we don't think we can. And everything begins in here, in the mind. Love begins in the mind. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, guess what? You're absolutely correct.
It's a mindset. And it starts at a younger, not to cut you off, and it starts at a younger age. Like I know for me, it was instilled upon me to always think I was the best. Like when my grandmother, she would always say, you are the best. So when I went out into the world, I knew, okay, I'm one of the best, but she was like, baby, you the best. And so, you know, those things were filtered.
Right.
Like I tunnel vision growing up to the point where when I was in school, people would think, oh, she's stuck up. No, I'm not stuck up. It's just that I was about my business. And it's just that, you know, I'm about doing what I need to do. I want you to be great. But if you don't want to be great, you know, you stay over there. Don't bring your negativity over by me. But my thing was, while you're bullying people, while you're hating on people, I'm trying to do what I need to do to move on and be great. And if you want to be on the greatness, then that's fine. If not, go over there. But I mean, for me, it's just, you know, people in general, it's the empowerment. She empowered me. She encouraged me to always be somebody that was great. When I walked in the room, it don't matter what people think about me. I'm the best. I'm the greatest. I don't care what you could think, whatever. But I always had confidence. I remember how I would come into the house. And one time I had my head held down. She said, don't ever come into the house like that again. You always walk with your head held down. And so from that moment, it was always instilled upon me. And I tell my friends, I tell all of my family, I don't care what's going on. you whoever did whatever to you, you smile. You the baddest. You better walk with your head held high. If you don't
Right.
learn nothing else from me, you learn that, and you know
Right.
that. Like
Right.
seriously,
Right. Well, I'm blessed to have 5 children and
that's
4
good.
grandchildren.
Okay.
And all of my children, what me and my ex-wife instilled in them is value. What my mother instilled in me. Because my mother partially raised all my children until she, became sick and couldn't do it no more. You got daddy and mommy and you got grandma,
Mm-hmm.
and now my children have daddy and mommy and and now we're grandparents, and what happens is you give them a light that they can carry with them to the end of the tunnel. And now their way's going to get dark because there's going to be times in their lives when they get dark. Turn that light on. See where you're at. Look around you. Find out which way not to go, which street not to walk down, and just keep going forward. When you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you're going to get to the other side. Because what happens is when you can break through that wall, and you get to the other side of yourself, because see, the walls that we need to break down aren't in front of us. They aren't around us. They're inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And when you break down this wall, you can get through any wall in front of you.
Amen. That's true. You can. Like sometimes it's your own self. It's called don't let me get me. You can go so far, but it's your mindset. It's something that's blocking you. And if you keep
Right.
saying that you can't do something, you're not gonna be able to do it. That's why with math and with certain things, people are telling kids like, oh, it's okay if you can't do it. Don't say can't. You can't do it. You don't want to put that out there into the atmosphere. You want to put positivity out in the atmosphere. So
Right. Very true. Very true. And I think we need more of that. We need more positivity. We got too much reality.
yes.
We got more reality television than we did. I mean, when I was growing up anyway, 'cause we're young. When I was growing up, we had variety television. We had Carol Burnett. We had Flip Wilson. We had stuff that made you laugh at 7 o'clock. We had Ed Sullivan, which gave you the Beatles and entertainment. He introduced Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. I remember when I got the chance to work on the Invincible album with
Okay.
Keith Fluid and Audrey Wheeler. We were given instructions when we got to the studio.
Yeah.
Don't look at him. Keep your eyes down. Don't speak to him. You can wave. But he's Michael Jackson. And I'm sorry. I'm just going to be me.
Yeah, that's
And you
true.
may not call me for the next session, but I'm going to be me. And when I walked into the studio, I said, hey, Michael, how you doing, man? It's wonderful to meet you. Ed Sullivan's show, 1970, dude, I was there. Sunday night at 7 o'clock. You, Tito, Marlon, Jermaine, and Jackie. I want you back. Man, let me tell you something. I went and grabbed me a broom so I could play like Jermaine. I ain't care about Tito because he couldn't dance. and Michael laughed and we started talking. And he said, oh, Michael, I said, how's your brothers doing? He was like, Michael, Tito, they're doing fine. They're doing wonderful. And the other thing is Audrey, and they were sitting there going, is he actually talking to Detroit?
Oh.
But see, I'm your contemporary. I am your equal. There is no great you and little I, and that's the way I've always been. Michael Jackson might have climbed to higher heights than I have. He might have gotten to the top of the mountain. All right, but I'm not going to treat you like you're on top of the mountain. I'm going to treat you like you my brother. What's up? I come from Brooklyn. You come from where? Gary, Indiana. We both from the hood. You just happen to get to the top a little bit quicker. I'm still coming. My path took a different route. Now it may take me till I'm 60 to get there. You got there at 20-something with B. That's cool. That's cool. But see, the thing is, and I love it because Michael created the epitome, and sometimes the epitome, success breeds hatred.
Mm-hmm.
They say more money, more problems in the rap world.
Biggie Smalls. The late Biggie Smalls.
More money, more problems. And what happens is And somebody else said when money comes in the room gets smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody that looks at money that don't have it wants what you earned.
And they don't view it the same way. They don't
And
understand that you
and
work
they
hard.
mad because you ain't giving it to them.
Yeah.
They mad at you talking about, now Deanna, you know you should give me $25,000. You know you a millionaire. You ought to just give me the 25. I know you don't know me. But just because I'm asking you, you should give it to me. I don't have to earn it.
But you know what though? For me, I've always said, like, if I ever, when I ever get rich, we're gonna speak that to existence. I'm gonna be successful. Anyway, I'm more likely to help a stranger at times. And I know that stranger is not going to expect it. That stranger is gonna just be appreciative of it. And sometimes your own family and friends, they are so entitled. You should help me. And like, you don't want to be an enabler. And my thing is, I'd much rather you, going back to the whole thing, you teach somebody how to fish or whatnot so they can flourish or whatnot.
Well, see, that's that saying you saying. You give
Yeah.
a man a fish, he'll
Yeah.
eat for a day. You
Yeah.
teach a man to fish, he'll eat for the rest of his life.
Exactly. And that's what I'm on. Like, you need to like, honestly, I don't like to enable people. You need to work hard. Just like I worked hard, and you need to work hard. And for me, I've worked 2 or 3 jobs before when I was in college, and I did not care. I'd much rather do that because guess what? I don't want nobody to say, "Oh, I did that for you." It's because of you because of me that you have that. No.
Well, see, I grew up in the foster care system here in New York City. And my mother taught me not to make any excuses.
Mm-hmm.
And she prepped me hard because she was in education. My sister is an educator. My daughter is a 5th grade school teacher.
That's awesome.
My sister would make me come in the house on Saturday because we were not allowed to play with the kids in our neighborhood because we was in the hood, and most of them wound up growing up to be drug dealers and different things of that nature. Some of them are dead. Some are in prison. And the ones that are left are like shells of their former selves. Some of them. Maybe about 2% of them became successful or relatively normally successful middle class people. What happens, what I've seen, my sister made me come in the house and practice my penmanship because, like yourself, I'm a lefty. I'm a southpaw.
How did you know I'm a lefty? Did you pick up my lefty?
So throw
Obama's a lefty too. Obama was
right. And so what happens is
the world. We're gonna take over the world one day.
Yeah, and when I was coming up, they had those big loose leaf notebooks. And they had them right over top of the ring. And they looked like a retard going, and my sister didn't want people to make fun of me. So she made me come in and practice penmanship for 2 hours every Saturday. And I had to write sentences and paragraphs and nouns and pronouns. So I knew exactly how to phrase different things in sentences, which helped me to become a poet. But it really improved my penmanship because my daughter, when she got to high school and she failed the test, she learned the art of forgery. And she came home with a test one time. I was like, you know, you clean the house, and I'm looking at this test that said like it was 60 something. I was like, Lindsay, want to talk about this? I didn't meet you, Daddy, but you got such good handwriting. I was like, no. And we had a long talk about it, but there's no easy way out of this life.
No, it's not.
You gotta go through this life. And you're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have days that challenge you. And that's the reason why God leaves the front door of your life closed. I'm saying that to everybody. The front door of your life tomorrow morning is closed. After the next hour is closed. You know? You don't know what's going to happen at 10 o'clock tonight.
Exactly.
But I guarantee you, 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, somebody that was here at 8 o'clock tonight ain't going to be here.
Ain't going to be here. Exactly.
It's like New Year's. And it's like, yeah, I face this every year as I've gotten older. Somebody you love is going to die before 2021. Somebody famous is going to die
Right.
before 2021. One of your family is
Mm-hmm.
going to die
Don't die.
before 2021, and one of your friends is
It's
going to die before 20. Now, when you face those four realities of what's not going to be, then it makes you create everything that you need to be for you, because you realize what limited time space that you're working with.
it's
Because you
three
don't know if
wow.
it's supposed to be your time in 2021. You might be the one you talking about that ain't here when the bell strikes 12 in 2021.
It's three things I tell people that I only have to deal with in life: being black, paying taxes, and dying. I ain't got to deal with nobody. That's what I tell people all the
Yeah,
time. Like I
yeah.
put that's all that I'm guaranteed. That's guaranteed. Is that guess
With the
what?
guarantees.
Everything else is temporary. Yo, look, that job is temporary. That permanent job is temporary. They will replace you in a heartbeat. That money is a temporary fix, but death is permanent. That's the
Right.
only thing that's permanent. So
Well, the thing that I've learned between permanence and I've learned things in solitude that I never could with people talking around me. I've learned things by praying by myself than I ever did going to church, sitting in a service.
mm-hmm.
Because in the service, everything is directed
Mm-hmm.
for your attention. Praise and worship, directed for your attention.
The Holy Ghost,
The
people.
Holy Ghost, directed for your
Mm-hmm.
attention. Prayer, directed for your attention. Everything is dictated to you from the time you walk in the door to the time you leave. How much of that is self done? When you're in solitude, when you pray and you talk to God on your own without somebody saying, tell him yes, tell him thank you, tell him thank you now. I said, tell him thank you. Spitting in my face and carrying on and putting oil on me. Now, I'm not saying it because I grew up in it.
Yeah.
I don't need you to tell me who God is to me.
Yeah.
I know him for myself.
It should be in your heart. It should be something that you do for yourself. I
Right.
grew up in the church. I grew up as I would consider myself, well, my grandmother was from Arkansas, Bradley, Arkansas. So a Southern Baptist, but growing up in Flint, Michigan, I went to church every Sunday, and I believe in God. I'm spiritual, and I read the Bible. Like actually during COVID, I got closer to God. Like I've gotten time
Mm,
a little bit more, and I did my own little thing.
mm,
And I still go to church from time to time, but I do want people to know that just because you go to church, I hope y'all don't think that you're going to heaven if you don't accept God. If you don't accept Jesus Christ, you're not going. Like you have to live and be that every day. Like be an example, a prime example. For me, like if you're just going to church and because it's a lot of fake Christians. I call them fake Christians.
mm.
They go out here and they do these things, and they're just like, "Hey, how you doing?" I can't
Right.
stand this person. Like, okay, and they fake too. It's like that's
Well,
all
how many people have you seen go to church dressed up with to the nines, give all their money in the service, but then a homeless person is laying out at the curb.
they
They
don't
will
want to.
step over them and go to their cars in the name of Jesus.
I have a problem with that. When I
There's
was in
no outreach.
yeah,
And I'm not saying this is everywhere. I'm just
yeah,
saying, growing up in there, I saw the good, the bad, and
you
the
know,
ugly. And
yeah,
I mean, but there are people, ministry should encourage you, should engage you. For me and my wife, we get up every Sunday morning. I don't live in Houston, Texas, but Joel Osteen inspires me. So I sit up and it's a half an hour we in service for half an hour. We watch Joel and we go on about our day because everything happens in a half. I don't need no praise and worship. I don't need you to sing me 50 songs to get me in the mood because everything is like a precursor to the Word of God. So it's like we need to have prayer first for 2 hours. Then we're gonna have the choir sing for 2 hours. Then we're gonna hear the Word of God. Then we're gonna take an offering because you got to pay for what you just heard and what you just prayed for and what you just thought. No, I like turning on my television set to channel 5, channel 9, or channel 11, getting the Word of God, cutting it off, and going on about my business. That's just me. And I got everything that you got from sitting up in there.
I feel you. Like I don't want to be in service like all long. I don't want to be in there for 4 hours.
Well, the other thing is I grew up in services where, I grew up in Church of God in Christ, Church God in Christ, you went to
Oh
church
yeah,
and
told you
you
no
had to be there at 8:30 in the morning for Sunday school, which lasted till 11. 11 o'clock, you had to go up in the choir stand. That started the morning service. 4 o'clock, that was when service got out. Y'all went around the corner or down in the kitchen, got some chicken and Kool-Aid. Then after the 4 o'clock, then you had 6 o'clock YPWW, Young People
Mhm.
Women Working. Then after that, you had 7 o'clock prayer. Then after that, you had 8 o'clock devotional service. Then after the 8 o'clock devotional service, you had 9 o'clock broadcast where you stayed on
Mhm.
the broadcast till 11 o'clock, and you had school the
Back-
next morning. Jesus did not care in those circumstances that you have to be up at 6 at the bus stop. Not to your mama who was in Church of God in Christ. She's like, you're going to stand there. No, boy, don't you know? I'll slap you upside your head, Lord Jesus. And you know, you see up in the choir, said, Mom, I got it. You know, and we lived through that. It put a foundation in us
Mhm.
that, for me, that I know the truth between a lie.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
know true gospel. I know false gospel. And it doesn't matter whether it's formative religion or, informative religion. The thing that I've learned that God is in every religion. I'm going to tell you why.
He's in control.
He is in Catholicism. He is in Zen Buddhism. He's in Dalai Lamism, because
Mhm.
when he's in the Nation of Islam or
Mhm.
true Muslim, because everybody is calling him by a different name
Mhm.
based off of their scripture. If you looked at
Buddha.
the Quran and the Bible, it looked like the same book,
Mhm.
same teaching, same ethics. Does everybody follow? No.
No.
If you look at the books on Zen Buddhism, same thing, except in Zen Buddhism and in Buddhism in general, the different types of Buddhism, it's from the internal out. Most of our formative religions teach us it's from the outside in. Because if you don't act like I act, then you ain't saved. If you don't wear what I wear, then you ain't saved.
Mhm.
If you don't do like I do, you ain't saved. And I laugh at it now because God is who he is to me.
Uh-huh.
And you may say, James ain't never got back in the church. He going to hell. He going to bust hell wide open. One of you think Jesus going to send him an email. The postman ain't going to help him. Jesus ain't going to help him. James ain't getting into heaven. St. Peter going to get that. James going to get that gate. St. Peter going to lock it. And then he might even send him a text message. James, you can't come in.
Well, I
He
laugh.
might even take James' cell phone when he get to the gate. James, give me a cell phone. I'm sending it downstairs to that other person.
I do have another question though. So funny. So, how was it working with Paul Harcastle? Like, I seen the video of Top of the Pops or whatnot, and that was phenomenal. I was like, hold on, that's Paul Harcastle on the keyboard.
Oh, yeah, Paul, honest to God, I talk to him every blue moon every couple of years.
I love
He
him.
looks
Oh my
exactly like he did in
god.
1982.
Yeah.
And the wonderful thing about Paul, he was so, as a keyboard player and as a musician, this is what I say: learn your craft. You're going to be a singer, learn your craft. If you're going to be a keyboard player, learn your craft. If you're going to be a guitarist, learn your craft. Don't be lazy and go in the sample world, because I use samples. I'm not going to say I don't use samples. I'm not saying I don't use drums, samples, and native instruments, but I can manipulate it like a musician would. And I can use those samples to come up with bridges and choruses and make it into a song. Whereas people who don't know, they just play that loop over and over again and then
Mhm.
put a string line to it and call it a chorus.
Mhm.
And there's no relative changes. They don't even know how to take the song up an octave or up, a half step and make it even exciting to build to a repertoire. No, they're just like, and it's like, and then they win a Grammy Award. It's like, yeah,
You
man.
know what that's
Wow,
about, though.
I wrote this song, Yes, I wrote it, I'm a brilliant genius, look at me. And I'm sitting there going, not that I'm hating,
Oh no,
but if I come into that studio and turn the electricity off, can you sit down at a piano and play for me? If I turn that guitar amplifier off, can you pick up an acoustic guitar and play for me? If I turn that microphone off, can you sing and make me feel connected to you the way you did with a microphone on, without auto tune? I wonder.
Not too many people can do that now. Like when I think about a lot of the artists, I think of people who, like, for instance, Aretha Franklin, Patti LaBelle, El DeBarge. I mean, let's see, Shaka Khan, Prince, I'm naming all these people, Luther Vandross. They all sound different. Nobody can sound like them. That's what makes it special. And like now it's just like, oh, everybody sounds the same. Everybody want to throw in runs, and everybody it's like, what makes you special?
Well, back then you knew Peabo Bryson from Teddy Pendergrass.
I love them.
You ain't never put on a Teddy Pendergrass record and said that was Peabo Bryson. No. You ain't never put on a Peabo Bryson record and said that was Teddy Pendergrass. You never put on you can't put on a Michael McDonald. Now, the only album that you can put on and you might be fooled is a Michael McDonald album and think that it's James Ingram. Because their tones are similar, but slightly different. James has a little bit more roughness to his voice. James has a lot of, because I get compared to both of them a lot. I get compared to, but how many male vocalists out there do you have that can belt?
Not and
can really belt? Not many. That can get into well, I hate to say it, but women used to throw their panties at Teddy Pendergrass.
I was just about to say,
Teddy Pendergrass, but they just was like, let me tell you, I'm going to Macy's and buy me some, and I might even buy me some Glory drawers, but I'm going to throw me Teddy so I can be like the other women. And Teddy get up there, they'll feel me, baby, give it over here, woman, give it. There you go, Teddy, it's Jacob. You can have me after the show too. Teddy, I know my husband is sitting right here. He don't matter. George, you don't mind, right? I just want to go get his autograph. Really, I just want his autograph. I'm not lying. I'm going.
They came out with the Teddy P's. Remember the jeans?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, I never got to work with Teddy Pendergrass. I wish I had. But I loved his music. He got me through the 70s. He and the Spinners. Peabo Bryson, Field of Fire, and all those songs. Peabo was another one that was like Prince before Prince to me. Because Peabo was from the South. He's from North Carolina, I believe. Yeah. And as a Southern boy, he did not let the changing in music, dance music and disco, and even the music that I did in the 80s, turn him. And I've worked with Peabo Bryson on several shows.
Oh, he is awesome.
He never allowed you to dictate to him to change his style of music. He was a balladeer. He wasn't a fast singer. He was like a Luther Vandross type person. Even Luther had Never Too Much, which brought him into that thing where people wanted to dance and groove. And, but to me, one of the most brilliant songwriters that if I could ever reach his pinnacle of success is Lionel Richie.
I love him. Oh, my God.
Because when you listen to the Bangles every Manic Monday, you didn't know that Prince wrote it, unless you knew Prince's way of writing.
True.
Then say, oh, that's a Prince song. And until they tell you it's Prince, if you listen to the chord structures, you wouldn't know it.
I Feel For You, that one too. A lot of people didn't know that.
Sheena Easton.
Sheena Easton, yeah.
When Sheena Easton came out with Sugar Walls, I never put two and two together.
Yeah.
I thought it was like Thomas Dolby or somebody who produced that. You know what I mean? And then when they said Prince, I was like, oh, okay. But that's where brilliance meets brilliance. Even in Great Britain, the thing that blew my mind was the first time I went to Top of the Pops. And, I got to work in 1985 with London against the GLC London against apartheid. They were trying to free Nelson Mandela. And it was a 2-day concert at Wembley Stadium starring George Duke, Stanley Clarke, LW5, D-Train, A Third World, and Shaka Khan. We would have in a 2-day festival. And you had like 17,000 people show up every day for the concert. We did the last day with Shaka. And Boy George and all of them came to the concert. I got to meet Junior, who had the record Mama Used to Say. We became fast friends.
So,
Yeah, 30 years later, I still call Junior. I write him on Facebook every week. What you doing, man? How's the grandkids? We got to work
okay.
together in France and stuff like that and hang out you know, me and Junior, we used to we hung out. We were the bad boys of France. Okay. We were just in France, you know. I ain't gonna tell what we did in France, but we were in
I
France.
don't want to tell. Don't tell her.
It
Don't
was
put like.
good times in France. But bonjour, bonjour, très, très bien, c'est soir. But anyway, we had a good time over there. And it was really nice. And you learn from your mistakes and you learn from your path.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn that this world doesn't define you. Your mistakes don't define you because you can always, like Donnie McClurkin says, we fall down, but we get up.
Yeah, you're
We
right
get
about
up. We fall down, but
we
we
do.
get up. And it's not how many times you fall down. It's how many times you get up to fight another day.
Amen. That is true. I agree. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Like this has been interesting. Oh my god. Yay. I'm looking at the time. I'm like, oh my god, it's getting late.
Oh, it's okay. But anyway, I want to thank you for having me on the show. And,
Thank you for
and,
coming.
and
Like, oh my god. So
we've
can I
been friends on Facebook for years, and it's
I
the first
know.
time we
Can
made
I
it happen.
tell them this though? So I hit Mr. D Train up. So I'm saying Mr. because I don't know. I was raised.
Lord, she made me feel, oh Lord,
So D
what
Train, I hit him up and I was like, can I interview you and whatnot? And he was like, yeah. And so he called me, we talked and whatnot, and we had a good conversation before this. And thank you so much because you didn't have to do this. Like, you know nothing about me. And I appreciate that. And then found out that he knows one of my faves or whatnot, a lot of my faves. So that's awesome.
yeah.
So, yeah. And it's just, I mean, honestly, like I learned a lot that I did not know. And that's the whole purpose of this is to learn things and to, have informative information to give to people, mainly my millennial counterparts. I love y'all, but some of y'all, we gotta do better. But anyway, we do. And so for me, generation wise, when I like old school music, I love it and I enjoy it. And I would always get questions like, but you're so young. And I'm like, from my peers or whatnot. And some of them do like the music and they're like, but why don't you like, okay, I don't like that though. That's too manufactured for me. I like this. And I could like literally sit down with people and tell them like that's copied. You know what year that came from? I would literally recite the whole thing and they're like, but who does that every day? That's weird. I said, well, I do it. Anyway, so it does not matter. And I do a lot of other things too. But anyway, so yeah. And I just thought about doing this. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And I had a concept and I was like, I'm going to run with it. So yeah.
Right.
But
I'm proud of you, little sister. I wish you so much success with your show.
Thank you. Please come to DC for a show because I missed you last time. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely. I love Washington.
I will definitely go and I will pay because people pay for tickets. People don't be trying to get free tickets. People do that. I need y'all to pay for tickets.
We got to pray before we pay because COVID has knocked a monkey wrench into everything, but I think we'll be back by spring of 2021, or globally on a smaller level. I think we'll be back in full swing 2022.
Okay.
I think once Joe Biden and Kamala get in there and get to work, praise God, I think by June 2021, I think the world will open up a little bit more its doors because a lot of us as musicians need to do something other than be musicians. We're book writers. If you can write a song, you can write a book. And I say this to my contemporaries, be something more than what you are because there is no 401k in the record industry. There is no pension plan in the record industry. You are only as relevant as your last record. Ain't nobody gonna pay you a pension based off of your record in 1976. Ain't gonna happen. And you're gonna be sitting around your house broke living with your grandkids. Stop doing that. Become something more than what you are. I'm learning now. I got to navigate differently than I did in the 80s because in the 80s I had you got a publicist, you got record companies that do it now for you. But now, I'm in need of a publicist. I need a really good publicist. Any really good publicists out there? hit me up or hit Deanna up. Let her know
I have
who
friends.
your clients are.
I have a couple of PR major friends. Hit me up.
Yeah, hit her up and let her know, and
Yeah.
she can let me know because I'm looking for a publicist. I'm looking for a very good publicist because you need one. Because other than that, you're just releasing your records into the wind, and they may get heard by your fans, but they won't get heard by the world. And it's important for your message to go global, number one, and don't be afraid of the world. So many of us like, well, if I could just hit here in New York, if I could hit around here in America, listen, I got the world. No, not necessarily.
Mobile. Be
Right.
mobile. Yeah.
My music is hit in America, but I'm bigger globally than ever was in America. And I can go over there now and do a sellout concert. I could do a sellout festival. Thank God. And because you're still relevant in Europe, because they take the time to learn who we are, not who we were. Because see, over here we're tolerated. Over there we're appreciated. That's the big difference. So I'd rather go where I'm appreciated than where I'm tolerated.
I agree. I
I
agree.
don't need your permission to get on stage and sing a song. I've been here before. I don't need your permission to get a number one hit. Been here before. Done had a number one hit or top 5 in Billboard. Don't need your permission. I already paved the way for you to be here. So I'm going to do my thing and get it out there the right time, the right way, the second time around, and not have to deal with promoters for radio stations. Oh God. That's just the new pimp in the game.
I do want to say, so remember you were telling me about your future residency?
Yes, I'm working on one.
Las Vegas. That's awesome.
Las Vegas. Yeah, we're working on, we're moving out there, my wife and I. I'm looking forward to going to Vegas and creating you have to always create a new you. The second half of your life should always be better than the first half. First half, that's where you make all your mistakes. But when you get to 50 plus, then that's where you make your move. People are like, oh man, well, and you have to take care of the body. You have to make sure that you're healthy and enough to create wealth because there is no wealth without health. So you got to learn to change the way you eat, the way you think, and the way you are. And you learn and the way you speak. I take courses with the Mind Valley Academy. I'm not a promoter for it, but I take courses with them so I can always be in a state of learning. I listen to Anthony Robbins. I listen to Dr. Wayne Dyer. I listen to Les Brown, because they keep you in a state of learning. They say the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Well, take the first step and keep learning. If many of my contemporaries would learn more, they could return in a way that they would be appreciated once again. But they think if I put out a new record, everybody who knows my name from the 70s is going to come back with you. Not so. These millennials are looking at you with your gray beard and your silk suit, saying, what clown act is that? You got to change who you are is the way you dress. The way you dressed in the 70s on stage is not going to promote you in 2020. You have to find a new you. You have to create a new you. If you're the same person on stage in 2020 that you was in 1972, what am I gaining? And what are you losing?
Also, don't be afraid of voice lessons, people. A lot of people are afraid of voice lessons. Don't be afraid of them.
Oh, no. I listen, I have a son. My youngest son is an opera singer.
That's awesome.
He graduated from Purchase College, got his master's at Manhattan School of Music, and then he was the soloist up at Abyssinian Baptist Church for Reverend Calvin Butt until Wynton Marsalis got wind of him and took him with them to sing solo at the Winter Olympics in London, England. And he has never looked back since then. He lives in Toronto, Canada, Jarrell Williams. And, he's doing his thing. He didn't choose the path that I took. He took a different musical path. There ain't many black men in the opera world. You can count us on this.
You're right about that. I only know two. Another one, my brother from college.
And, he knows 4 languages. He can speak 4 languages. And I'm very proud of him. I'm very proud of all of my children. They all chose different paths. Not more proud of one than I am of the other. It's just that musically, he and I connect. And what if I run into a problem vocally? Like I was in Washington doing Blues Alley, and I had gotten a little hoarse from the flight, and voice was a little raspy. And this was in 2017 or 2018. I hadn't done a 90-minute show since the 80s. And I had to do two 90-minute shows in one night. And I was unprepared, to say the least. I can give you a 60-minute, but 90 live with a band and I'm hoarse? Oh, no. So I met my son. He was down there doing an opera in Washington, D.C. And I said, please meet me for lunch and give me some exercise. He met me in the restaurant and gave me some vocal exercises that I could do and things to drink, teas to drink, ways to move your jaw like, nah, nah. He said, you're going to feel retarded, Daddy, but it's stretching your vocal cords. He says, pull your bottom lip over your top lip and pull your head all the way back. You're stretching your vocal cord. And let me tell you something. I got through both 90-minute shows with flying colors because of him, because I was not afraid to ask for help. I've been doing this for 35 years. And he's been doing this for 35 minutes. But you got to reach out to the youth and say, son, I love you. Can you help me? And if I had a vocal coach right now, it would be him. And I'm going to continue to call my son for different vocal exercises because he's brilliant. He is a vocal teacher and he's a vocal expert. I came up the old school way where you stand in the choir going, Lord, and the louder you sang and the hoarser you got, the more Holy Spirit everybody got. Yeah, Jesus. You know, and that's the way it was.
That's good. Like a lot of people don't know this, but like I guess like for millennials, some of us don't want to take voice lessons. I take voice lessons or whatnot. Well, I'm in a voice class, but like, and I'm about to be doing voice lessons to get back with that. But anyway, so shout out to Aretha Scruggs, my voice teacher, my vocal. Yes, I had to shout her out. Anyway, so look, I'm plugging everybody. So anyway, so look, it's all good. So at the end of the day, a lot of people don't know this, but you have to take them to help your voice. And even like when you're a teacher, it helps you. Like if you're speaking, you need vocal lessons so you don't get dry and so you don't hurt your voice. And they're very important. And a lot of people, they do not want to take mainly a lot of millennials. I hate to say that, but some of us don't. I don't need vocal lessons. Are you trying to say I can't sing? And I said,
no, not only millennials. No, I'm talking about people that are my age and older. They don't want to take it. See, millennials, at least they have some type of excuse because of lack of knowledge. When you're 58 and 60 and you've been doing this for 60 years or 50 years or 40 years or 30 years, and you think that I don't need to do that because I had a hit record in 1941. I don't need to do that because everybody knows that I can sing. Well, you telling me I can't sing? It's worse on my end than it is on yours. And we know better. We know better.
It's kind of, I think like it's arrogant a little bit more because like with the younger people, it's people, and I'm not naming any names because we know a couple of people that really need, well, my best guy friend / little brother from college, he would name them. But anyway, he's always like, D, they need vocal lessons. Like who is telling them that they need, I said, maybe they're not horrible. Right. I'm like, you're just hard on people. He's like, they. I said, no, they not that bad. They not the worst. I mean, But some people is like, I don't know. Some people are, I don't know. I'm not gonna bash no. I'm not bashing nobody because I'm not. That's not what it is. But some people, they could be a lot better. Like, and a lot of people have improved, and they're like, wow, that's amazing. But there are people that need voice lessons. Voice lessons help you. It's not a bad thing. And ear training too. I'm getting better with my ear training, thank God. Because
it improves your ear training. Not only that, one of the greatest female vocalists that I know in this world, Vanice Thomas, Ada Dyer, and Lisa Fisher.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes.
They still, Lisa Fisher's religion, her religion is vocal lessons and vocal exercises. Yeah. Lisa is in perfect pitch, perfect tune, not always she's in perfect voice, but things happen to us because these are our instruments. See, the guitar, it has strings. You can change the string and tune it up and it works. And if you know how to play that instrument, it's going to play the way you play it. Voices are not like that. Because when we go out in the cold and we don't wrap up our throat the way we're supposed to, guess what?
You sick.
All of this turns into, why are you doing that?
Yeah. Laryngitis and all that.
And then it turns into, can you sing a song? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sound like you got COVID-19.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sound like you got COVID-19.
Yeah.
I'm making a joke out of it, but it's like you have to take care of your instrument. Mm-hmm. Know your instrument and take care of it.
Yes. Well, thank you. Oh my God. Like, I lost my hat. Anyway, it's okay. But thank you for tuning in, everybody. And thank you for hearing Mr. D Train's story. He has a lot of great stories. Like, he's written a book. I mean, awesome. And literally a lot of interesting things. And I'm just happy that I got a chance to talk to you because you're one of my faves.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you for tuning in, everybody. And I have Timmy Gatlin of Guy. So check that out at 9:00
All
Eastern
right.
time and 7:00 Mountain Time. Yeah, so check that out.
Cool.
Thank you. So how do we
Well, I would say to everyone out there, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in to Deanna's show. I was glad to be a part of it. I'm so proud of it. And you know what? All you out there that are trying to hone your craft, know your instrument, learn your music, and become more than what you are. Some of you ain't singers. Some of you are not musicians. Some of you are not destined to be in the music industry. That is not the be-all, end-all. Become an educator. Become a fireman. Become a policeman. Become the best. If you're a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper that you can be. Be honest, be integrable, and that way you will always shine.
Amen.
And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deanna. You guys have a great evening. Enjoy your weekend, people. Love you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good
bye. Be safe.
Right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. That was awesome. So we will do this next week on Friday. And again, the person I have is Mr. Timmy Gatlin from Guy. I know y'all know Guy. Groove Me. Anyway, so we will check this out next week. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Y'all be blessed and have a great night. Be safe. Thank you.